Okay, good morning and welcome to Iyun with Benzion. We're learning Yevamos Daf Nun Ches, number 58. Big chiddush today about Eish Chopel Psulos, or Ein Chopel Psulos, dating back from yesterday's Daf. Rav and Shmuel Machlokas. Rav says that Eish Chopel Psulos, Shmuel says Ein Chopel Psulos. The common way of translating the Gemara, Eish Chopel Psulos, or Ein Chopel Psulos, is basically read Rashi and then Zayim and Beis. Rashi, top Rashi and then Zayim and Beis. Here's a couple of psulos. He says, Kohen Gadol Shenis Almana, Bas Kohen Lechopa. Velo Baal, Kohen Gadol took an Almana into the Chopa. He wasn't Baal, Mikar Namilo Kidsha. He wasn't Makadisha. Afilu Haki Pasla Mitruma de Beinasha, the Chopa Kinizas Biladamya. Chopa by itself has significance. It's like they're a Boel, and therefore it has the effectiveness of a apostle. From Shuma, everyone agrees if you're Boel, someone, Amana is Boel, Kohen Gadol is Boel and Almana, he would pass from Shuma. The Mishnah merely discusses Nun Vavam and Beis, Rameir and Elazar Shimon are arguing about if it's Kedushin to someone you're usher to. Does that pass already from Shuma of your father's house, her father's house or not? If her father was a Kohen, sure, Bia would passel. Now it's interesting, the problem over here is that the lashon of the Gemara, yesh chopel psulos, ein chopel psulos. What the Gemara really should have been saying is whether does chapa pasel mitruma or does chapa not pasel mitruma. It's a broad question. Yesh chopel psulos sounds like is a chapa effective makom psulos? Does it have any effect in this halachically in makom psulos? Yes, one of the nafkaminas is that pasel mitruma, but that's just a nafkamina. It's a broad categorization to the point. In Unchem and Aleph, the Gemara tries to decide this matter. Yesh chopel psulos, ein chopel psulos, from a case of Sota towards the bottom of Nun and Aleph, and the Gemara there originally tries to say that the Mishnah there in Sota is talking about a case where she was in Arusa, and then she was engaged, and then she was warned by her husband, and then she was secluded herself with that man, and then she was nichnas al l'chuppah v'lo nivola. And the Mishnah calls that nisua, so it must be that's the case of talking about. For other reasons, the Gemara says it's talking about there was only chuppah, there was no bia there. She went under the canopy with him, but there was no bia. So therefore, it equates that with nisua. So you see, it's like nisua, and therefore it's a proof yesh chopel psulos. Now there, it's nothing to do with truma over there. They were talking about the din of sota. So the din of sota over there, the Gemara is trying to prove yesh chopel psulos. So it's a broader question than just a psul for truma, not a psul for truma. So I'd like to suggest over here that when the Gemara tries to bring the Gemara on the bottom of Zayin and Beis and top of Nuchem and Aleph, the Gemara tries to say this machlokes is the machlok yesh chopel psulos, ein chopel psulos is relevant to the machlokes of Meir and Elazar Shimon. What's the machlokes of Meir and Elazar Shimon? Again, like we said before, in the Mishnah Nun Vavam and Beis says whether kedushin to apostle does that pass from Shimon? Right? Meir says that pass from Shimon. Elazar Shimon doesn't pass from Shimon. The Gemara deflects this comparison. The Gemara says even Rav Meir who holds that kedushin pasli, right? Kedushin does pasel. Chuppah wouldn't be pasel because chuppah is not kona. Chuppah is not kona. Kedushin de lo kanila, but chuppah lo kana. So therefore, maybe it's not pasel for Shimon. Rav Shimon say we're talking about a case kedushin doesn't pasel, but chuppah is krova bia. It's closer to bia, so it's almost like you're boel, and for sure bia, everyone would agree that would pass to make her a zona, would pass for truma. So the items are not related. Now Rashi says in Zayin and Beis, the question of yesh chopel psulos is talking about a case where there was just chuppah, meaning there was no kedusha, there's no kedusha keser shar, just chuppah, and that's the question. Now this is a discussion in the Gemara and kedushin on Daf Gimel and Daf Hey. Rav Huna has a shita that chuppah affects kedushin. Chuppah is good enough to affect kedushin. Without kedusha keser or shtar, chuppah would also include. And we don't pass like that. The Mishnah, the first Mishnah in kedushin says keser shtar bia la'afuke to tell you that not like Rav Huna, chuppah doesn't work to affect kedushin. It's interesting that Rashi's learning the case of Rav and Shmuel. The Malchus Rav and Shmuel is talking about a case we don't pass in halach. We don't pass like Rav Huna. The first Mishnah in kedushin says chuppah does not affect kedushin. So how could the Gemara Rav and Shmuel have a machlokes about chuppah, whether it passes with Shmuel or not passes with Shmuel? So we have two questions over there. One, the fact the lashon seems like a general lashon. And secondly, we're really saying that the machlokes Rav and Shmuel is lo aliba de hilchasa. It's not according to halacha, not like Rav Huna. We don't pass like Rav Huna. Therefore, I want to suggest over here that again, this discussion Rav and Shmuel is a broader discussion. It's machlokes whether chuppah of apostle affects a nisuin. And we're talking about with a kiddushin. He did a kiddushin. Does the chuppah affect the nisuin or not? When nichta the chuppah v'nivla, is that considered a nisu or not? Just like the Gemara on Cherem and Aleph tries to prove exactly what it tries to prove, and therefore the Ran in the beginning of Ksuvos talks about a chuppah's nida, a woman who's nichta the chuppah while she's a nida, right? So the Ran paskins over there that there is a chuppah. The chuppah does take effect. You go ahead with the chuppah, and therefore you don't have to get married again, right? You don't have to have another sheva brachos. You don't have to have another 80 nisuin, another ksuva. It's totally effective over there. Why? Because it's passing Rabbi Yeshua psulos. Now there it has nothing to do with truma. It has nothing to do with truma. If it's just a limited machlokas as truma, so how could he bring a proof from our Gemara on Zayin and Beis Yesh Chuppah Psulos? Must be it's a broader question whether chuppah after kiddushin affects a nisuin or not. So all the Gemara, the problem with this is the Gemara non ches mal. The Gemara seems to relate to say that the machlokas Rav Meir and Rav Shimon is dependent on yesh chuppah psulos and chuppah psulos. To the point the Gemara says, and the Gemara deflects that. The Gemara says Rav Meir who holds that kedusha would pass for truma, he would hold maybe chuppah wouldn't pass for truma. Nami lo pasta, right? So, right, the top three lines in the Cherem and Aleph. Third line, my dima akan lakamer remeir hasa and kedushin the kani la chuppah the lo kana lo chuppah, which is not kona the woman, right? So it's not wouldn't possible for truma over there. So again, we have the problem, right? Rav Huna, this seems to be according to Rav Huna, we don't paskin like that chuppah itself. So here we're talking about. Here we are talking about truma for sure. Meir and Ezra are talking about truma over here, but they're not talking about a case. They're talking about a different case of where the kedushin was beheter, right? The kedushin was beheter. For example, the case of sota or the case of nida. That's what they're talking about. The Gemara is not talking about a case where there was no kedushin. It's not, there was a kedushin. It just wasn't. It was done beheter. If the kedushin was done beheter, not beiser. So that's the question. Rameir and Elazar, could it be related with a passover truma with a chuppah? So that's what Rameir says. Chuppah is not kona. Chuppah we possibly Rav Huna. It's not kona kedushin, and it's not kona nisuin. Nichsel chuppah v'lo nivela. Possibly it's not kona anything. It's not kona make any kinyan at all. It doesn't make any kinyan at all. So therefore, even though there was a kedushin, it wouldn't pass over the truma because the kedushin we're talking about is behead there. We're not talking about the case, exact case of Rameir and Elazar where the kedushin was done on Manal Kohen Gadol, Gushal Chalutza Kohen Hedyot. We're talking about where the kedushin is on beheter. That's this Gemara over here, and we're not talking about where there is no kedushin. Of course, there's kedushin. If there's no kedushin, chuppah has no effect on this at all. We don't pass on like Rav Huna. We're talking about the case there was kedushin, it was just on beheter. That would explain the Gemara over here, and that would explain the lashon. Yesh chuppah l'psulos, ein chuppah l'psulos. We're talking about after a kedushin. Does it have effect in this or not have effect in this? That's the share for today. I hope you enjoyed. I know Ray Wittau enjoyed it in this room. See you tomorrow. Bye.